Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Today TV. I'm Sakshi Batra and this is a special edition where we're going to be focusing on the job trends and the salary trends going forward from here. Now, Teamlease Services, which is a staffing company, has brought out its jobs and salary report for the fiscal year 2022-2023. And joining in to discuss more insights and the outlook going forward is the top management of the firm. With me, Mr. Karthik Narayan joins in. He's the CEO of staffing at Teamlease Services. Welcome, Mr. Narayan, and thank you so much for taking the time out for this discussion. Now, some of the key highlights from this report include about the salaries. For example, you mentioned in your report that the salaries were seen rising by about 4% and the maximum salary hikes were seen at 10.7% last fiscal year. Help me understand, what is the expectation for FY24? Is it likely to remain on the similar trends? Are we going to see some bump up from here as well?
Yes, first of all, Sakshi, thank you for having me. Just a bit of context and background. Of course, Teamlease Services is India's leading staffing conglomerate. We work in three broad areas: employment, employability, and ease of doing business.
Yeah.
And every year we release this, our flagship report, which is the jobs and salary primer, right? So this one is for FY22-23 to kind of get a sense from our own real data as to what the salary trends have been. So some of the things that we've really seen is that the Indian job market overall has experienced slower salary growth this year, with growth rates decreasing from about 10% to 9% on an average.
Okay.
Right? So that's point number one. Of course, it's more nuanced. Telecom, media and entertainment, IT and knowledge services have exhibited salary growth slightly higher than 9%. Even in that, when we really break it down, there are specific roles in telecom and media and entertainment and IT that have really grown. Some of the other verticals which are there, which is agriculture, agrochemicals, and so on and so forth, outside of all of this, is much lesser than 9%. Now, coming quickly to your question, saying what should we expect going into FY24? Given overall, of course, India is in a unique position because unlike the rest of the world, we continue to grow. And our GDP growth is 6.5% to 7%, depending on which report you're reading. So we will definitely have an inflation index salary hike, but more likely it will continue to be in single digits as an average, and perhaps just for specific roles in double digits, early double digits, if I say.
Right. Now, you did mention that you have seen a slowdown in the salary growth vis-a-vis previous years. Now, if you could tell us and help us with the reasons of the same. Why has there been a slowdown? And are these reasons likely to weigh on the salary increases going forward as well?
No, absolutely, Sakshi. I think there are multiple reasons to it. There is no one single reason. I think we also have to understand that the previous year was still a bit of a recovery coming in from the pandemic years, prior.
Right.
And therefore, there was still a lot of movement, and we've heard terms like, quiet quitting and, people wanting to change jobs, much more in those periods. And hence, there was a specific demand which kind of came up because of digitization and digitalization. There was a lot of movement which was going on. And hence for talent, there was, hikes going into double digits. That was one. But I think number of things have kind of changed since then. I think overall, except for India, there is hardly any major economy which is growing across the globe. They are slowing down. And hence, there is a ripple effect which is happening everywhere. Post that, I think, the global economic situation has also changed because of the war in Ukraine and, crude oil prices and so on and so forth. So all of us that have some or the other effect going into this year, right? So like I said, India still continues to be a bright spot where you will see hikes, but you will not see hikes in the way it was in the previous last 2 years.
Got that. So there will be hikes, but not like in the past for sure. There are concerns that will overweigh the salary growth even going forward from here. Is there also an indication in the report that you found geographically, where does one get high paying jobs in the sectors that you've spotted which have actually given double digit, salary hikes, and in some of the job roles that you pointed out? Is there any indication of some particular geographies really paying higher jobs or salaries than the others?
No, absolutely, Sakshi. I think no prizes for guessing this one. It continues to be tier 1 and metro cities.
Yeah.
So Bangalore, telecom, IT, and knowledge services, I think that remains, and of course followed by Mumbai and Chennai. So the larger cities continue to get the disproportionate share of the top jobs as well as hikes.
Okay, what about the demand for sales and the IT roles? That has been mentioned in your report that these jobs definitely saw a hike in FY23. For FY24 also, what is the trend of hiring that you expect, particularly in the IT sector?
Yeah, so whenever there is a little bit of slowdown per se, I think people do tend to double down on sales to make sure saying there is a degree of growth which kind of comes through, and hence you will continue to see demand on the sales side to be there. On the IT side, I think it's more nuanced. I think the number one thing is there is definitely a slowdown. There is no question on that. We have heard it all across globally as well. Having said that, I think niche skills within the IT space will continue to have a demand all across. So I think those will get paid disproportionately. I think the rest of the jobs, it's not that within the IT space everything is going to go away. I think they will have demand. Unfortunately, of course, there is a twin problem that we are facing. Apart from some of the larger companies laying off, there is also a being freeze on the startup space, right?
Yes.
So I think that is also kind of adding to the overall slowdown. I think the only thing I would say is it's not that I think IT skills are still going to be in demand because of the rate at which India is going to grow going into the next year, relatively compared to the rest of the globe. But the hike might not be double digit with some of the more fancy things that we've heard about people getting cars and so on and so forth to attract talent.
Right. I'm glad that you pointed out about startups and e-commerce because this is also a space that garners a lot of interest of our viewers as well. What has been
Yeah.
the key trend in these particular sectors and what's the outlook for FY24?
Yeah, so a degree of slowdown for sure, and especially I mean, again in e-commerce you'll have to really split it down. I think quick commerce is one where you have seen, I think a degree of rationality which is kind of coming through because of the difficulty to kind of raise funds right now. I would say edutech also kind of falls into that particular bracket. So you will not see the same degree of growth or in terms of hiring which is taking place in some of these spaces, right? So that is one which is going to define again people switching jobs into startups, etc., and all that. First of all, I think the appetite for that will be slightly lesser going into this year as compared to previous year. People possibly would look for slightly more stable jobs, I would assume, in larger companies. But even for those who will make a switch into the startup space, I think the hikes will probably not be as high as what it has seen in the previous 2 years.
And like you also pointed out in one of your earlier answers, that we've been hearing a lot about layoffs in this
Correct.
tech-linked markets and the IT and startup space as well. What has been your observation so far in this space in FY23? Have you been able to spot any kind of numbers? We've been hearing all kinds of reports, talking about 1 lakh and 2 lakh jobs getting lost, but there is no, one specific report which talks about specific number of companies having laid off and how many number of jobs having lost. Any sense that you've got from your study?
No, tough to put a number to it, Sakshi, to be honest with you, because if you really read the books of most of the larger IT companies, they might not necessarily specifically lay off, but they might not backfill, right? So if I've lost 100 employees, I might not choose to backfill. So and it will be tough to kind of put a count to the entire thing, right? So I think that, so that's really. But I mean, it is a fact that. And it's painful, but it's a fact that I think a lot of roles have got eliminated over the last year, primarily because of the surge which happened during the pandemic and post-pandemic for all the attempts on digitalization, and digital transformation, right?
Right. How about the influx of artificial intelligence impacting jobs and hiring? That also has been a topic of concern among many. We have seen some IT companies really own up to it and talk about how AI will help them reduce the number of jobs that they will have to shell out to humans. Others do say that, we've been using artificial intelligence in various forms from several years, so they have not really seen any impact on jobs per se because of artificial intelligence. What has been your own sense? Has AI really impacted jobs so far in FY23? And what's the outlook on that? Will we see more slashing of human jobs because of AI?
So my view is, I think first of the macro view through this entire thing is, the newer technologies will keep on coming,
Yeah.
and it might impact jobs in the short term, but it's going to end up creating newer jobs right around that entire thing. But coming to a specific, I think it's a really exciting and developing area, right? And there is no doubt about that it is going to have some or other impact on a variety of jobs. For example, my view is a lot of mundane jobs, perhaps let's say if I have to pick up a like software testing, etc., and all that, right? Can easily get done. In my own
Okay.
industry, to be honest with you, our ability to kind of screen resumes, shortlist them, etc., and all that, which is ideally done by people, could probably be done by AI, right? So going into next year, Sakshi, definitely, I think some of these will evolve and mature a little bit more. But having said that, let me tell you, prompt engineer, for example, as to how do you
Yeah.
query an AI engine is like one of those new jobs which are coming up, right?
Okay. Okay. All right.
So those are the kind of newer jobs which will come, for people to kind of upskill themselves and get involved with that. I mean, who would have known saying Instagrammer is like a job 10 years back or 15 years back, right?
Sure, absolutely. You're right over there. So definitely scope for newer jobs will emerge. Some of the mundane jobs will be taken away by AI, and that's how technology really helps evolve us as well as a humanity too. So that's going to be an important aspect, and we will continue to understand more about it as we go forward. But in your report, you also mentioned 11 of the 17 industries really created hot jobs in FY23. Which are the sectors that really created these hot jobs, and will they continue to hire?
No, absolutely. Like I said earlier as well, I think there are specific roles which are coming up because of the shift in technology. For example, battery testing engineer,
Yeah.
both in the EV space and in the automobile and allied industries is a new job which is kind of coming up, right? Robotics instructor that we are seeing in educational services, right? Cloud architect, which is a job which has been in the market for some time now, but is increasingly, gathering pace because of the major shift which is continuing to take place, right? Cybersecurity specialists, given again the explosion of everything which is happening around and more businesses coming online, and security being a major concern, is another hot skill job which is continuing to be in demand, and we don't have enough folks.
Okay. And lastly, just help our viewers understand, because a lot of our viewers are youngsters, millennials, and even Gen Z who are now on the verge of looking out for jobs too. Which are the upcoming jobs that youngsters must now focus on tapping, build on their skills to know that these will be the highest demand jobs as we go forward from here?
Yeah, so given there is a wide variety of interests that everybody will probably have, it's difficult to kind of put forward one specific skill set
Sure.
or an area that people should focus on. But I would say, let's say if it's a tech space, but definitely cloud, IoT are some of the spaces that one can really focus on, because those are all growing with double-digit increase.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Narayan, for being with us on the show and discussing with us all the insights from this very, very interesting report that you have put out. And here's hoping that we can continue to touch base to understand more about the business insights going forward from here in terms of how this space is really evolving as we go forward amidst a lot of macroeconomic uncertainties that still face the world and also in India. Many thanks for being with us.
Thank you,
All
Sakshi.
right, and with that, we will wrap up this special edition. Lots of insights to take from the Teamlease survey and the report on jobs and salaries for FY23. What we have seen is that the growth on salaries has slowed down over the previous years, but still has come in at 4% to 10% on a band. We've seen that top pay masters giving greater than 9% salary growth include sectors like telecom, IT, and knowledge services. Fastest growing profiles include customer manager, also turbine engineers, intra-city development engineers as well, sales executives, and some of these IoT cloud-based jobs will be the hot and upcoming jobs that youngsters can definitely watch out for. We'll continue to track more on the world from business and stock markets, so do stay tuned with us onto Business Today TV.
Well, good morning. You have raised